I'm just going to go sit up there with those folks. Okay. Thank you, Karen. So, I'll be silent before you have to speak. I know. Yeah. Can't hear me. It just wasn't close enough. Thanks. Good evening, friends. Welcome to the, I don't know which plenary we're on, but welcome here. Before we get started with the program tonight, I'd like to introduce the FGC Development Committee, and Faith, our development officer, will be speaking to you.
My name is Carter Nash. my pronouns, he, him, his. FGC is a beacon for me. I'm sorry more friends aren't involved, because those who aren't are missing out on the way FGC serves us by helping to connect us with each other. Not just through the gathering, but with many other things as well. Being a friend means we're not told what having a meaningful life is. We're expected to be open to the guidance of the Spirit to gently lead us to our meaningful life. Service to FGC is important in my life. When I was told I have stage 4 cancer, the doctor said, "Do something that brings you joy." I realized that something was being joyful in my service to our Quaker world. It's this service that I believe has helped me to continue to live. It has been almost 5 years since I was told I have stage 4 cancer.
Thank you, Carter. My name is Faith Josephs, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. And I joined the FGC staff this year as Associate Secretary for Development. I'm here with our Development Committee and a few friends, and we have just a few stories to share with you this evening before we hear from our plenary speaker.
Hello, I'm Becky Marty. My pronouns are she, her. I happen to be the friend of residence for Junior Gathering, so I have a rather intimate involvement with the life of Junior Gathering. From a Junior Gathering perspective, Quakerism is a value. It's how you live your life. FGC provides a container for us to try out living these values and to see examples of these values in the lives and actions of those around us. The Gathering is a special place where we can see these values come to life. It's a space to be in community with other kids and adults who have similar worldviews. It's a place to have deep conversations where deep things happen. And it's a place to play, to be joyful in that play, and to question, be confused, and be affirmed for who you are.
Hello, I'm Colby Abaz, they or he. My first gathering was in the high school program, and I felt that I had found my Quaker community. I was raised Quaker, but my local meeting was an hour-and-a-half drive, and with the transitions of high school and later college, I attended different meetings when I could, but it was hard to invest deeply, and I was always one of very few young friends. Coming to Gathering, I found a vibrant community of peers and have been welcomed, challenged, and have grown in my Quaker faith. FGC Gathering is like my monthly meeting because the community of friends I've made here is who I reach out to share joys and for support and healing. I'm so happy to have shared these many years with all of you, and I'm excited for where FGC can grow into the future and how I can be a part of that transformation.
Hi, good evening, friends. My name is Anthony Stover. My pronouns are he, him, his. I serve on the Finance Committee as a liaison to the Development Committee. I have a message from Junior Gathering. Junior Gathering would like to extend a heartfelt thank you for the generous donations provided by friends that made it possible for children and young friends to participate in FGC's Gathering 2019. Here are just a few of the appreciation messages from our young friends. Junior Gathering. I enjoy having a chance to be quiet every day and making new friends. What I like about my group, the Pine Trees, is that the teachers really care. I love the mornings when we climb trees. I love the snacks, fun activities, and making lots of friends.
My name is Ann Pomeroy. I use she, her, hers. My meetings, New Paltz monthly meeting, New York yearly meeting. At my first gathering, I realized that while the gathering was really important for me personally, I also knew that I needed to come back for my kids. I didn't know what would be asked of my children in the world, but the relationships they develop at the gathering will serve them long into the future. I want our children to have these relationships and gathering experiences to draw on, knowing that all of our children can be there to support one another for whatever the days ahead hold for them. In addition to the gathering, FGC has a variety of additional opportunities friends can engage in. We will highlight two. As part of FGC Spiritual Deepening visitations to yearly meetings, I've seen how friends look to FGC to build connections and provide spiritual care. I also traveled to different meetings as part of the development committee of the Central Committee, the FGC governing body. I hold all the people I meet through these activities, the spiritual deepening visitations, the development committee meetings, and here at the gathering, I hold all of you in my heart. I am part of the listening to how we are called as individuals and people into faithfulness. Our spiritual deepening work is in these connections with friends, and it's sharing our resources in the Spiritual Deepening Library or telling friends about our e-retreats. Please raise your hand if you have engaged with any of our online resources.
Hello, I'm Lynn Pearsall. My pronouns are she and her. I also serve on the Central Committee and its Development Committee. Tuesday night's plenary was a powerful example of our anti-racism work. And did you know that the implementation team of the institutional assessment can come do a presentation at your meeting if you ask? I gratefully consulted with them to write an article for a newsletter for the quarter that I worked for in Philadelphia Yearly Meeting. How many of your meetings are engaged in this work?
The FGC Gathering and some of these other initiatives that friends were speaking to are possible because of all of you who show up, who come and participate. Thank you to the friends who contribute your time and your expertise to make this week possible. Thank you to the individual friends who give to FGC. And thanks to your monthly and your yearly meetings, who also make financial contributions. Every single gift to FGC makes an impact, no matter the amount. Our goal this year is to increase our overall number of donors, as well as our monthly giving program. So I invite all of you to reflect on what impact the gathering has made in your life, and to think about how or what you may be led to give. Whether it is a gift of service or whether it's a financial contribution, we are grateful for all of your support. Thank you, friends.
I'm John Fletcher from Norman, Oklahoma. I'm John Fletcher from Norman, Oklahoma, a member of the South Central Yearly Meeting. It's my privilege to introduce the speaker tonight. Before I do that, I want to review the question process that we're following. As you came in, I believe you received a card and pencil, and we would like for you to fill out these cards with the questions that you would care to have answered at the end of the talk. They'll be collected at the edge of the rows by runners. They'll be taken to a panel of 3 people, and the panel will look through these questions to eliminate duplication of questions, and it'll make the process go a little better. So we'll do that at the end of the talk. So I welcome you, friends, to the talk tonight. As a part of this introduction, I will recap a couple talks made at the gathering previously about mass incarceration. At the North Carolina gathering, we heard Daryl Atkinson and Scott Holmes outline the front end of mass incarceration. By front end, they identified the laws and the judicial practices that have led to mass incarceration in the United States. In Pennsylvania, Laura Magnani addressed the middle stage of mass incarceration. She described in vivid detail the conditions and treatment that our citizens endure in our U.S. prisons. Tonight, Tony Fish will address the third phase of mass incarceration, which is the task of healing the lives of thousands of broken persons released each year from our overcrowded prisons in every one of our states. Let us return for a moment to Laura's talk and hold up a thought that she shared with us that evening in 2014, at the 2014 gathering. When she spoke of the broken lives of persons released from prison, she said, and I quote, "Real healing is a complex community process." I repeat, she said, real healing is a complex, and I stress the word, community process. So tonight, I ask myself, and you ask yourself, where in the U.S. are those complex healing communities that Laura was talking about? What town, what city, what state, what government is providing real healing for the thousands of broken persons that are coming out of our overcrowded prisons? Tonight, you will learn of one exceptional healing community. It is the Muskogee Creek Nation of Oklahoma. Your teacher tonight is Tony Fish. Tony was born in Oklahoma and has lived and worked among his people, the Muskogee Creek Nation, his entire life. Tony is the former chairman for the Wetumpka Indian Community. He is currently chairman for the board of directors for the East Central Oklahoma Family Health Center. In 2005, Tony was instrumental in planning and implementing the first ever tribal integration program in the U.S. for ex-prisoners, the first one in the U.S. He has been the director of this program ever since its initiation. The design and success of the Muskogee Creek Reintegration Program has been communicated by Tony at numerous conferences and forums. Most notably, our presentations made at the Smithsonian Museum of American Indian in Washington, and a talk given at an Indigenous Persons Conference at Harvard University. In 2012, Tony was one of the founders of the Native American Reentry Alliance. The purpose of this alliance is to promote the public safety and facilitate the best reentry practices available for citizens returning from prison. Membership is open to any of Oklahoma's 39 tribes. Tony received his education in the public schools of Oklahoma and studied criminal justice and management and public administration at Mid-American Christian University. His home is in Dustin, Oklahoma. His workplace is Henrietta, and his heart is with his people, the Muskogee Creek Nation. It is one of my greatest joys to have Tony Fish as a speaker here at the gathering. I extend my utmost respect and admiration to Tony and the people he serves for the achievements and the contributions being made today in the 21st century by the Muskogee Creek Nation of Oklahoma.
Good evening, friends. Today's a good day to be alive. Today's a good day to be Indigenous. And today's a good day to be a Quaker. Thank you, John, for that kind introduction. I want to say I very much appreciate the hospitality that's been showed to me today. Everywhere that I've ever been, I've never experienced quite the hospitality as I have today. So thank you very much. Like John was saying, I'm a member of the 4th largest tribe in the United States. We have 82,000 enrolled members. We have a very complex judicial branch. We have a legislative branch who legislates our laws and appropriates our money. We have our administrative branch. The administrative branch is where my program falls under. We have a separate health administration where we have 2 hospitals that are community-based, meaning they're not just for Native Americans, they're for anybody in the community, regardless of race. We have 8 clinics across our jurisdictional boundaries. We have Muskogee Nation Business Enterprise and One Fire Holding, who are our economic drivers of our programs and provide the economic resources for us to go out and have the programs that we have. My budget comes from the gaming revenue, so people hear about casinos. We have about 15 casinos, and every single bit of funding that the tribe puts forth comes from gaming revenue on my program. We also receive a few federal grants, but the bulk of the money comes from the nation in support of their people. And we have approximately 43 different supportive services, whether it be employment and training, higher education, scholarship foundation, language program, employment and training. There's just a whole slew of different programs that we offer. Now, to understand just a little bit about where we come from, because it's important to know who you are and where you came from. We, as Muskogee people, we lived in the western parts of Georgia and eastern parts of Alabama. That is our ancestral homelands. As you can see, we had a pretty large land base at that time. We were forcefully removed from our homelands, and we walked on the Trail of Tears to Indian Territory, which is present-day Oklahoma. During that journey, we lost a lot of our citizens. But we also showed our resiliency and how strong we are. This is our boundaries today. This is the boundaries of the Muskogee Creek Nation, and we service 8 full counties and parts of 3 others. and our land mass is equivalent to that of the state of New Jersey. So basically, around us lies the other 5 civilized tribes. The Cherokee Nation is to the north and to the east. The Choctaw Nation is directly south of us, and the Chickasaw Nation would be southwest of us. Seminole Nation has a little strip, and those nations make up the 5 civilized tribes. We have 39 different tribes in the state of Oklahoma. Now, I was talking a little bit about our history. We have a history that's rich in struggle, talking about the Trail of Tears coming over from our ancestral homelands. Strife, but we also are triumph because we're still here. We're still doing what we've done for hundreds of years. Our ways of life are usually an adaptation of our original practices, the things that we've done for hundreds of years, we continue to do today, especially in our ceremonies. I want to talk about binary opposition for just a minute. And it's so important to understand the way we think when we talk about the programs that we offer. For instance, our culture is to only take that which is necessary. Non-natives think, let's get everything that we can for ourselves. For instance, if we have a river, we're going to dam the river up and keep all the water. Where native beliefs are, we only take what we need to sustain ourselves. Our values are communal, and that's evident in the projects that we do across the nation. We build roads, we build bridges, and it's for everybody to utilize. We also have a lot of events that's open to the general public, and you don't have to be exclusively native to attend. Non-native views are individualistic. It's what's going to be betterment for yourself, self-preservation, what we're going to do to create our own future. Our identity is tribal, non-natives is American. We are reciprocal. We are respectful in our behavior, where non-natives are more ego-centered. In our communication styles, that of listening. I've had people tell me, at different places, you don't speak a lot. Why is that? Well, it's because I'm listening to what you have to say. And that's how I hear. If I'm talking, I don't necessarily hear what's going on or what somebody has to say. So non-natives, they think in those terms. So we think in circles. Native Americans think holistically. In circles, we think of everything that evolves around that person, that thing that we're trying to do. Where non-natives think more in straight lines, more a linear fashion. Now, Muskogee Creek Nation, we have what we call ceremonial dancing. Spirituality is so very important in our culture. Before we have meetings, before we have any events, we have prayer. And our prayers go up to, in our native language, it's Izagadamazi, which means giver of life and breath. We have a fire ring. Our traditional ways are a ring of fire, and we dance around that ring of fire, and we sang songs and we sang prayers in our native tongue, and the smoke from the fire lifts those prayers up to the Creator. We take medicine. Part of taking medicine may be if you have aught against your neighbor or you have something against somebody, you square up, you put those things out there, and then you go on and you heal from that. And then once you do that, then you take medicine. You can't have aught against anybody. In Creek culture, clans and tribal towns are a family structure in which we belong within a tribe. It's usually a reflection of our kinship and our immediate relatives. So, Muskogee Creek, historically, we were, the women held power. They were the head of the household. They made decisions, they held the meetings, they done all that. It was the job of the men was to provide protection, They were to provide the food to do the hunting and also to have children. Excuse me. So that thought process changed when Europeans arrived, and we saw how it was totally the opposite of our ways, and the men were head of the households, and women were basically viewed at a lower level. So there's not so much of that in the tribe, but there was a kind of a push early on for that. But today our women hold council positions. We've had a lady who was the second chief of the nation at one time, and those positions are elected positions. This is a picture of our traditional stomp dance right here. This was taken at Fish Pond Ground near Okima, Oklahoma. Now, you're not going to find many pictures of Native American stomp dance because we view this as being very sacred, and it's something you don't bring off the grounds. If you do bring it off, you have to ask for permission to do so, and you do it for educational purposes. But this is an old picture of a stomp dance. Our bodies, our minds contain the blueprints of our lineage. The seeds of our ancestors' unfinished business are still alive in our cells, bones, thoughts, and actions. Ruth King said it best. The historical trauma that we've faced through our time, the boarding schools, the forced removal, in order to start healing from those things, we got to recognize that they existed, and we got to tell the truth about what really happened. So I am the manager of the reintegration program. So what we do is we help people who have been convicted and sent to prison and jails make the transition back into society. Number one, we want to do this because it's the right thing to do. Number two, public safety is first and foremost, and it's our culture. It's who we are. We were passed by tribal law in 2004 by the Tribal Council. The program actually started in 2005. By 2008, we received high honors from Harvard University honoring nations for the work that we've done. 2009, we received an award from the Ash Institute for an excellent example of democratic governance. In 2010, I was relatively surprised. I got a call from the Office of the Vice President. They were going to put funding toward reentry, and everywhere they looked about getting models and different things, Muskogee Creek Nation kept popping up. So we were instrumental in getting the information to them and then appropriating money for this cause. Indigenous Conference in Cusco, Peru, we were the only invitee from the United States. We went down to Peru and we talked about incarceration, how it affects Native people, and it was a collaboration of indigenous people from all over the world talking about the things that they face as well. In 2017, we wrote a grant and we opened the first ever transitional living center. We have a 36-bed facility and a new administration building, and I'll show pictures of that here in just a little bit. And in 2019, just this year, we created the first career services program. We have vocational training embedded within our program, and we teach, right now we're teaching welding because that's an offender-friendly job that they can go out and be self-sustaining. We have both men and women taking advantage of that. And we're in our first class right now, and we have 2 more classes already filled, waiting to take off. So it's something that's there to help our people, to help ourselves, and to give back into the community. Now, we have belief statements, and everybody that I've hired into my program, they have to believe in these belief statements. They have to believe every citizen, even if you've been to jail, even if you've been to prison, is important. You have to believe that. If you don't, I can't use you. Every citizen is capable of change to become positive and productive citizens. I know myself, I'm not who I was 10 years ago, and surely not who I was 20 years ago. And I think if we self-reflect, we can look back and think about the chances we've had in life. And there's probably times that we could have been in the same situation that they've been in. So that is a belief that we hold near and dear to our hearts. We believe every citizen is an investment in our nation's strength and our sovereignty, our ability to self-governance, because we're helping a population not normally serviced by modern interventions. And we believe through our efforts we can reclaim our citizens and restore them back into a culture that embraces healing and restoration of the person. That is simply our culture. That's who we are. Because as Muskogee people, we do not throw our citizens away. They are important to us. Thank you. You go out and you commit a crime, and you have to pay the consequences for that. But once those consequences are paid for, you're restored back into the nation. You are given voting rights. You're eligible to receive services. You're reinstated back into the ceremonial grounds. So our people are very important to us, and our culture is that which embraces healing and restoration of the person. Now, definitions, prisoner reentry, the introduction of ex-prisoners back into society. It's intended to create safer streets. It's all about public safety. We want our streets to be safe for our children, for our grandparents, our citizens, and so forth. It's a restoration of that person into an atmosphere of healing and forgiveness. And we do that to build positive and productive citizens. How nice would it be if everybody did that, if everybody embraced them back and built them up instead of tearing them down to become good people, tax-paying citizens? It benefits us all to think like that. Now, we received the referral from a correctional personnel in the facilities. We have family members that call us. They say, you know, we have so-and-so family member getting out. I don't have the space here at my house. Can you help them? We have, you know, just simply somebody saying, hey, did you think about the reintegration program? They may be able to help you. We do sponsored seminars at the different prisons. We'll go in and we'll basically give an overview of our program, and then we'll seek out applicants to be able to help. And if we can't help you, we don't leave you hanging. We'll find resources for you. We use media and TV, newspaper, and radio to get our message across. And we have a website. So if you go on the nation's website, it is mcn-nsn.gov. If you go on that website and you click on services, you will find a drop-down box, and reintegration program will be in there. We go to job and health fairs, and we simply have people that walk in off the street, a lot of times with a backpack on their back, no place to go, and somebody told them about the reintegration program, and here they are. And we're there to help. So we do have some things in place. Number one, you either have to be drug-free, or if you're not drug-free, you got to be willing to do treatment. We have a 7-panel plus alcohol. It's an oral swab, and we do that at intake. And that's not to say we're going to deny you for services. It's saying that, okay, we've identified a problem. Let's get this problem fixed before we move further. Because it doesn't make any sense in going out and getting them a job, getting them into a career, and then having this substance abuse issue that's going to more than likely not allow them to function in that capacity to begin with. It's intended to monitor client progress, positive treatment is offered, and it's also for noncompliance. So if we have somebody that tests positive for a substance and we offer treatment and they say, you know what, no thank you, I don't want to go do that, then at that time, going forward, we don't go forward together at that juncture, because we have to be good stewards of our tribal funds. We also have to be good stewards of our people. And As long as they're working the program and wanting to do good, we're right there with them. But if they stop, it makes no sense for us to keep going and helping them when it's just going to fall on deaf ears. Now, to be eligible for the reintegration program, you have to be released from incarceration. I say that because we've had people come into our office and they filled out applications for reentry services. And so we started reentry services. We started, doing the perimeters on the intake. And we determined that they're actually an escapee out of Texas. We've actually had that happen. So back down to the elementary terms, you got to be released from incarceration. You got to have a piece of paper that says, hey, I'm released from incarceration. You have to be a Creek citizen and be willing to adhere to program guidelines and caseworker recommendations. That don't mean that everything that we say has to be followed exclusively. We sit down with them and develop a plan around their needs specifically. It's not a cookie cutter approach. We can't go and just stamp out programs. We have to develop a case plan around that individual and work that case plan around them. We take care of life-sustaining needs first. They're necessary for life. Without would cause dysfunction or death. If not met, usually results in offender recidivism. So if you don't have clothing, if you don't have shelter over your head, if you don't have the medication that you need, then how can we expect you to go out and get a job? How can we expect you to go to training? How can we expect you to report to your probation officer when the very essentials are not being met? So we meet the life-sustaining needs first. That starts the reacclimation back into society. Housing must be conducive to their mental and physical well-being. And by that, I'm meaning we're not going to put them back into a place where they committed their crimes or where their old haunts are or things like that. We're going to put them into a new place because it's a new beginning. It's a new time in their life, so we want to start everything brand new. Client must be able to maintain residence once service ends. So, we'll pay for 9 months of rent off-site. We have 9 months of rent on-site as well. The only way that you don't come on-site is if you have a job already out in the community and you're doing well at that job. That makes no sense to bring you from that job and put you in our residential living facility. So we'll pay for a place for you to stay off-site until you get your feet underneath you. This picture right here, it's actually a cousin of mine. He went through the program approximately 7 years ago, and he had done time for arson. This is a typical off-site apartment that we rent on their behalf. We do $300 worth of clothing. We mandate that they have 1 pair of slacks, 2 collared shirts, and additional work-related clothing purchases if necessary. So if they need slip-resistant shoes to go to work in a restaurant, steel-toe boots to go to work on a construction site, we can provide those resources for them. So grocery assistance, we look at state SNAP benefits first, if they qualify for that. We also have a tribal food distribution program. You may have heard of commodities. That's what they've been called around our area. And it's basically government-assisted food. And we also have a garden on site. But one thing that we're able to do is we forged relationships with our area grocery markets. And we have accounts set up that we can take them into the grocery store and actually shop for groceries. And while we're doing that, we teach them the difference of store brand versus name brand, how to look for the sale items and how to make the most of their money. Basically, it's a cognitive behavior training tool that we use for that. This gentleman right here, he spent time in prison, and his crime was cultivating marijuana. And we turned that into, now he's cultivating tomatoes and squash and zucchini and different things like that. So, back in the Oklahoma Department of Corrections was really hard on just marijuana use. I've known people who had merely a joint in their pocket and go to jail for 17 years. It's really rough, and now we're more lenient on those crimes. You now have more leniency and more jail diversion type programs out there, but there's people that's doing hard time for simple crimes. And the medical needs must be taken care of, whether it be treatment of your mental health, substance abuse, your medication, behavioral health, and just overall wellness, physical wellness. With Native Americans, diabetes runs, we have a high rate of diabetes that runs in Native Americans. And so in order for them to keep their limbs and keep their kidneys and their eyesight, we have to stay on top of it. So that's what we do as well. About 7 years ago, I saw a need to have an attorney on site. And through a collaboration with Legal Aid Services of Oklahoma, we have an attorney who is embedded in our program, works specifically with reentry clients. And what we do is we help them with child support, custody issues. The first thing we do is a legal assessment, because if you're not being sued in a court of law currently, doesn't mean you don't have legal issues. We do expungements, employment rights, and tenant rights. I know that some of our citizens have been denied simple housing and also employment based on a felony conviction. And while a lot of times you can do that, there's certain procedures you have to follow. If they're not followed, then there's a violation of your civil rights. So we've kind of pushed the envelope there, and to make sure that when they tell us no, that they're right for telling us no. We have reentry classes, which basically thinking for a change is one, victim's impact is another, finance and budgeting, how to handle your money, because everybody that comes through the program gets a job. We set up savings accounts, we set up make sure that their fines and fees are paid for, and teach them how to go about paying their way. We have a class on relationships, job coaching, and we believe volunteering and civic engagement is very important. That's something that I feel like we've lost in this country. If you look back years ago, everybody would turn out for a civic event and they would help. And as the time goes on, it's not so popular anymore. But one thing that does for our people is it gives society a chance to see them for who they are. And then that paradigm shift happens. They see them as people just like them, people with feelings, people with values, people with a future. This is one of our reentry classes that we teach in prison. The lady there in the middle, she is my instructor for Thinking for a Change and Victims Impact. I have 3 other instructors. If you'll look there on the left-hand side, we have a guy that's not smiling, doesn't look very happy. He also doesn't have her certificate. I will say that he did get her certificate later on, but changing that mindset where, you got to show up to class if you want your certificate. So he did eventually get that, but he wasn't very happy in this picture. Now, we all know a little bit about the barriers to employment. Of course, a felony conviction, you can be denied simply based on having a felony. I know at one time, Muskogee Creek Nation, if you was convicted of a felony, you are not eligible for employment. That is one of the first things I did when we created the program, was to go back, relook at that, and change those rules. Now, we don't even ask the question, we remove the box. The box is gone. We have lack of experience, lack of training, because a lot of times they did not have a job before they went in. We have this thing called spot jobbers. And people ask me, what is a spot jobber? A spot jobber is somebody that'll do just enough work to get that electric bill paid, and then they won't work no more until the next month. or just enough work to put gas in the car, go out and mow grass. Unstable family dynamic. Transportation issues are really, most of our area, land base is rural area. Tulsa's the biggest city, but we are south of Tulsa. We only cover a portion of Tulsa, but we saw that as a need for our people. So what do we do when we have needs? We go and we write a grant. I wrote a grant. Part of that grant involved having a dedicated bus driver to take people to their appointments, to take them to work, to take them grocery shopping, take them wherever they needed to go. Employment is one of the biggest needs to our clients because historically, if you owed money to the courts, they wanted it, and you had about 30 days to get it to them. Because what happens if you don't? You're rearrested for your inability to pay, and you're reincarcerated back at the county jail. But debtors' prisons are unconstitutional, right? Yet we do it every day. So employment is one of the biggest needs for our clients. We have a list of offender-friendly jobs. Employment training programs are a huge part to our program. They help pay for some of the training our clients go through when they do the welding schools, when they do the culinary arts. We follow up with employers to ensure that, number one, they're doing what they said they were going to do, but it also gives the employers that confidence to know that we're going to be checking on them, we're going to be helping them and removing the barriers, and it gives them more, kind of lets down their guard just a little bit, and they employ more of our people. We have career development, resume preparation. Of course, we make them do weekly job contacts. There's some disabilities that we have. People come through with disabilities are unable to work. Sometimes they stay on a program longer. We had one gentleman, I believe, on the program for about 15 months because of his disability. He finally was able to be trained into something that he could do that accommodate his disability. Specialized reentry services, this is so very important. Mentoring and faith-based support. To me, it's one of the foundations of a good program because you have to have a higher power to answer to. You have to have something to put your trust into. And though you may not be able to trust me or trust the program initially, until we build that rapport and that trust with you, that higher power is so important. We have furnished sweetgrass, sage, cedar, which are ceremonial sacraments to people in prison. We have went and dug rocks, lava rocks, in order for them to hold their sweats. And provided personal mentoring and guidance. So if I have like a correctional facility that's maybe 100 miles from us, I'll find somebody in that area to go in there and provide and be a sponsor for the Native Americans. This is an example of a sweat lodge inside the correctional facility. This is at John Lilly Correctional Facility in Boley, Oklahoma. This is a picture of our drum group, also in John Lilly Correctional Facility. You can tell it's a very large group, and it's one of the biggest things or biggest attributes to a lot of our clients' success is being able to get one with the Creator, being able to get their spirituality balanced back into their life. And of course, we talked about the advocacy that we do, the court, with the probation and parole. Our attorney does that now. We used to do it ourselves. We also have juvenile preventive activities because I tell you now, if we're going to make an impact, we need to catch them before they get to this point. We need to make the corrections before then instead of on the back end. So that's a big drive for us. We hold a lot of different activities for our youth. And we also do speak out tours and we do prison tours. And we also ask that while when they're receiving services and not yet employed, we ask them to give back. We go out and we cut lawns for elders. We may pick up trash at the local park. We may do beautification projects within the town just so people will change their paradigms, how they view in society how people coming out of incarceration really are. We hold our clients accountable. They have to do certain things in order to participate in the program. Be on time is one of them. Because honestly, Native Americans don't hold time as really in value. We'll do it when we get to it. But in this day and age, we have to walk in two worlds. We have to walk in the native world and the non-native world. Non-native world says you be here at 8 o'clock, and they expect you to be working at 8 o'clock, not when you feel like getting there. So it's about training the mindset. We do a lot of program activities. This is one of the floats we put into the local parade. And it talks about our past, and you see the jail cell and somebody standing in that jail cell. The present is an office setting where they're coming to us for assistance. And the future is when they become what they're called to be, what their purpose in life is. And it sends a very strong message. And I think we end up winning first place for this float entry. This is our client of the year that we had a few years back. So we celebrate client success. When they graduate from the program, we celebrate that time. And every year we hold an event where we feed approximately 100 people. And we also have what we call Client of the Year. And this right here was one of our clients of the year. This is Kanawha Aid. Kanawha caught a charge for trafficking, and she was incarcerated. We were able to get her out and into our program. Kanawha had a bachelor's degree in education. Once we got her out, she could not go back to education, so she went to work in treatment. And while she was working in treatment, she went and got her master's degree. And done very well in the treatment side, but her passion and her calling, she felt, was still working with the children. And her charge was a trafficking charge. It wasn't nothing violent or anything like that. So we were able to petition for an expungement, and we were able to get that expunged off her records. If you pull her up today, she has no felonies. She is a special education teacher. This is our client of the year. This is Don Jones. Don spent 25 years in prison for murder. Don got into a bar fight, and he picked a beer bottle up, hit somebody over the head with that beer bottle, and they died from that. After 25 years, Don was granted parole. He came through our program, and he was only in our program a short while. He took all the classes. He went through everything, but right next to where our program is, there's the highways, Interstate 40 there in Oklahoma, and they were doing some road construction. So he just goes over there and walks, crosses the fence, walks out there and talks to the foreman, and they hire him immediately. He has now been with them 7 years. I get a Christmas card every year from him, and he lets me know how good he's doing and how thankful he is to be able to go through that program. The gentleman there in the, I guess it's a peach-colored shirt, this gentleman got me my first job when I was 14 years old working for summer youth. So they would get us jobs working 8 weeks out of the year in the summertime. I was 14, this man gave me my first job. When I became manager, I hired him to come to work for the program. And that's where he wanted to be. That is his wife and his son. So we do speak outs at schools. We go into the schools, and when I talk about a speak out, we're just sharing our experiences of what led us to become incarcerated. And we have our clients go in and just basically talk to them like I'm talking to you today about what led them to committing their crimes and being incarcerated, in the hopes we can turn them around before they make the same mistakes that they did. This is Lance. He's at the Henrietta High School sharing his story. This is Edna. She is also a client of ours. She's done very well. Both of them have done very well. She's sharing her story. Edna is a very, very smart young lady. I say young lady, she's just a few years younger than I am. so I consider myself young still. But it's interesting that she doesn't have a high school diploma, yet her children, every one of her children, have post-secondary degrees. And that's what she strives for. She wants to set, her children set the example for her, and she wants to bring herself up to that. And this is the audience that we're speaking to. It's usually 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, talking to them about making the right decisions, making the right choices in life. This is one of our impaired driving courses. So we'll take the golf cart out, we'll set the cones up, and we have impairment goggles that they wear. And these goggles simulate what it is to drive under the influence in a sober mindset. So once they take the goggles off and they see all the cones that they knocked down, we say that could have been a person, that could have been a vehicle, this could have been your child that you ran over. This is our transitional living center that we built. Approximately, we're 2 full years into this building. It was a grant that we wrote to the Bureau of Justice, and we asked for $2.5 million from them. I asked the Muskogee Creek Nation to invest the same amount, $2.5 million, into this project for a $5 million project. Department of Justice gave us $3.78 million. They gave us over $1 million more than we asked for to complete this project. This is our new administration building right here. And off to the left, you see the housing units. When we built this, I had a staff of 15. We started out in the very beginning in 2005, I had a staff of 3. Today, I have a staff of 25. We built 21 offices in this new building. We've already outgrown it. This is some of our housing units right here. So it's a 4-plex, and each plex has 4 bedrooms. So we have 2 bedrooms on one side, a common a bathroom for the 2 bedrooms, a common living room, common kitchen, a laundry room, and then the other side has 2 bedrooms and another bathroom. I had a guy who done a webinar from our facility, I believe it was on Tuesday, and he made the comment in the webinar, he said, "This place is better than my house. I would live here any day." This is a picture, so that is the Wing clan right there. So we named our buildings after our clans, our traditional clans. That's another part of us bringing our culture back into what we do. And this just goes down and kind of shows you the architectural style of the buildings. And we can hold 36, we have 36 beds for people coming out of incarceration. And a lot of times we have beds that are full, but when one comes off, we always have somebody else to fill it. So we're at a point now. I've stood up here and I've talked about the reintegration program. I've talked about our culture and who we are as Muskogee people. Now I would like to show you a documentary that we done a few years back. And this documentary shows you exactly what I've been telling you. It gives you a visual representation of the things I've talked about. So it's about a 15-minute long video. We'll go ahead and get that started, and then we'll wrap it up.
Reintegration means...
So reintegration to me means...
healing and forgiveness of the person.
The opportunity to become
productive, law-abiding, tax-paying citizens.
A second chance. Applying yourself after all this dead time to go out there and the world has changed.
Helping me better myself and get back into the community as a better person.
So I would call it reintegration hope for a person like me.
I'm Anita Selvage, and I'm a VR counselor with Creek Nation Voc Rehab. The reintegration program started because of the need that we saw as a vocational rehab. We had such a difficult time. placing felons. They were coming out of prison, falling through the cracks. They had no supports in place. There were stricter rules about hiring felons than there is today, and we would lose them.
I tried to go to work at an animal shelter shoveling dog feces, and they said, no, I can't hire you because you're a felon. And it makes it real easy to revert to crime. And so I caught another charge.
A couple of things we need to talk about is our new vehicles. My career lasted in corrections approximately 8 years. So with that, I was able to really get a glimpse of what people go through when they're incarcerated. And one of the most important things I learned was these guys and gals are people too. They're just like me. There's no difference. The only difference is they have a felony conviction and I don't. So I thought, you know what we can do is we can change our way of thinking. What makes the public more safe? Is it turning these people out onto the streets with nothing, and hopelessness and despair play a huge role in them committing crimes and going back in? Or can we set a program up such as this that helps them along the way?
You have to understand how Muskogee people are as far as accepting you back. They know that you've made a mistake, but even though you've made that mistake, it's a forgiving thing. Let's take you back. You're part of us.
You know, there's been so many people turn their backs. And they've turned their backs because of the things we've done. You know, we burnt them bridges, but the reintegration program is here. They don't care about them bridges that we burnt. They're here to try to build new ones for us.
We have, in Oklahoma, there's 33 correctional facilities scattered throughout the state. So as long as we've identified a citizen that's eligible for our program, then we will either go to them, we will talk to them on the phone, we will work with their case management at the prison, and we will start the process that way.
Once an inmate here gets involved in the program, we like to see a seamless reintegration process into the community. What we don't want them to happen is that we put them on a bus and give them $50. Everybody loses in that scenario. Whereas if we have somebody from the community who happens to be Native American, comes and picks up that individual, takes them and immediately introduces them to a structured environment that is supportive of that person, it has to increase their odds of success.
What do you think that a victim is going to want to see?
Retribution.
That's human nature. They're going to want that revenge.
They want to see justice.
The Victim Impact class is a 13-week course. It helps the client learn exactly how their crime affects other people.
A sincere apology from a person would be the first step in the road to recovery.
Unless you are sincere about it and you truly mean it. Because if I yell it to you and I say, I'm sorry, and I walk off and I go back and do it to someone else, do you think I'm really sorry for what I just did? No.
Without these programs, a lot of the times the guys don't know what to do when they get out, and they don't have any idea how to, stay out.
Once they're released, they have to come back and live within our boundaries. We have 8 counties, 8 full counties, and parts of 3 others that make up our jurisdictional area.
Hey, what's up, Roger? Hey. Come on in, man. How's it going? What's up, man? How are you? Basically, develop a client plan with them. They do have to pass a drug screening, and they have to be a Creek citizen. And as long as we're there within 2 years of incarceration, they can get started with this.
The reintegration program provides the basic necessities that everybody needs. They will provide housing allowance, food, clothing.
So once we get them stabilized within the community, then we look at long-range goals. Can they work? Is there any support structure out there for them in place?
When I showed them my release papers and my Indian nationality card and everything, and they just took action. That same day, they got me in a place and got shelter over my head.
I was gone almost 14 years in prison. So when I came home, my kids were grown. They were on their own so long, basically, with their mother, that my words wasn't no authority in their life, really. So I come for counseling and, to get things right.
We also do job placement. We're always going to different workforce sites and trying to see where we can find more employment, more felon-friendly jobs.
The employer knows that somebody is there working. It's not them by themselves, that somebody is supporting them along the way, whether it be making sure they're to work on time. If they need steel-toe boots, we'll provide that. If they need a hard hat, if they need glasses, if they need tools, we can go out and we can get that.
We ask that our clients keep in contact with us once a week so that we can be sure that they are on track. We do call their probation officers on a regular basis to make sure that they're checking in. I have called a few jobs and, make sure that they're coming in and showing up.
The requirements of my probation are no drinking, no drugs, no alcohol.
And sometimes it's just a phone call that they'll make to you and say, hey, I'm having a bad day. I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to. And it's right at that point that you have to step in and give your best advice and say, look, no, we're not quitting now. There's no quitting here. We're not through with you and you're not through with us. We're going forward with this.
My name is Allison McCall. I work for Muskogee Creek Nation Family Violence Prevention. I have 7 felonies. They just kind of spiraled one right after the other. I was sentenced to a year in county in 2012, and I did half of that, and I got out and reoffended. I went back in December of 2012. My whole experience took a big toll on my family. My mom, she suffered a heart attack while I was in prison.
It would tear me up when I would have to go see her. And just wondering, what went wrong? Just what went wrong?
We had a health fair the first year that I was incarcerated, and the reintegration program was there. And I got some information from them, and I held onto that form for the 3 years that I had spent there.
In regards to Allison, her needs were fairly basic at first, clothing, groceries, transportation.
The reintegration program just stepped right up to the plate and provided food for the table and Christmas gifts for the children.
They are very good about helping get you started on the right track, and they gave me leads on jobs, and I searched leads on my own as well.
I think looking at an applicant that has a history maybe of some criminal activity or incarceration, that it is normal maybe to have some sort of concerns. Certainly through our ability to meet with Allison, it was very clear that she had not only personal experience, but professional experience that would be an asset to our program.
Muskogee Creek Nation is the 4th largest tribe in the United States, so our citizenship count is a little over 80,000 members.
Being a tribal member matters a lot to me now, because I didn't ever consider myself, because I was a mix. So I didn't consider myself as part of the tribe, but they grasped me and embraced me and showed me love.
We've heard the words of the people, by the people, and for the people. That's what this program represents. And so, it's a program that is specific to Muskogee people.
Culturally speaking, we have different needs. We react to the same situations differently than other cultures do, and I believe that cultural gap is part of the reason for higher numbers of incarceration. The Muskogee Creek Nation Reintegration Program has bridged those gaps.
It goes to their identity, who they believe they are, through their customs and their traditions and their values. And that's important. It's important for our young people. Unfortunately, not all of our young people are getting that. They're getting caught up in what's out there, and next thing you know, they're incarcerated.
Thursday, I'm taking a youth to Cooks and Hills for a tour and hopefully get her in there and take her, get her finished.
Our reintegration program has an amazing juvenile worker right now in order to keep them out of adult incarceration and break those cycles.
I think what inspired the reintegration to start the youth program was the high percentage of tribal kids that we have getting in trouble. So we are doing everything that we can to prevent them from going into incarceration, into a shelter, into being a runaway.
We have helped over 600 of our citizens in the 11 years make the transition from prison back into society. We have about a 91-92% success rate. So that is after 1 year of service that they do not commit any crimes, any new crimes, or they stay out of trouble. Community attitudes about prison in general and about reentry programs were pretty negative in the beginning, and a lot of it had to do with they just did not understand what it meant and what was going on.
There may have been attitudes as, why should we fund individuals who have committed crimes against society?
With the council, we just kind of had to go to them one by one and plead our case, why there was such a need for this.
It's not about dollars and cents, but it is. On the back end, that can cost a lot of money, but the long-term investment in that citizen and their pride and their wholeness in the community is really where the payoff is.
About 200 if you want to look for a bed or something, but if it's a little bit more.
I found a couch for like $89 at a thrift store.
Yes, perfect. We just need an invoice from them.
So when I bring employees onto the reintegration program, I look for a number of different qualities, but the number one quality I look for is passion. You gotta have passion, you gotta have love in your heart for people, and you gotta wanna make a difference.
My family was in and out of incarceration, my father. So I didn't really get to have the relationship that I desired with him. There were no programs like this back then. When I see people walk into our office, I see mamas, I see daddies, I see just sisters, brothers, just trying their best to do what they think, is the next step into getting back on their feet to have that life they're supposed to have.
I'm gonna start working at McDonald's. It's about a mile away down that way, and they're paying me a little more because I have experience.
I'm not ashamed of my past. A lot of people are like, why do you tell people that you've been in prison? Why do you tell people that you were raped? Why do you tell people that you've lost a son? Why do you tell people that you've been in all these situations? Because I hope that somewhere that my story touches somebody.
To me, it's just a flawless and seamless transition.
Reintegration means to me family, love.
Reintegration to me is accepting and understanding that everyone has challenges in life and can overcome those.
Reintegration to me means to introduce people back into a society that embraces healing and forgiveness of the person.
Reintegration to me is hope. It's new beginnings. It's life outside of prison. It's a new start. It's second chances or third, however many it takes. It's just, it's amazing.
So what do we do? Decrease criminal involvement among a group not normally reached by the traditional interventions of the community, simultaneously rehabilitating our citizens, offer protection to the public through rehabilitation, and providing alternatives to reincarceration. Together, we can make a difference of breaking the chains of addiction, the chains of crime, prison, recidivism, abuse, and neglect. It takes all of us, whether it be indigenous people, whether it be Quakers, whether it be other entities that come together for a common purpose. Thank you for the time. This is my contact information up here. If you want to reach out to me, feel free to. Email works best for me. A lot of times, I may not get right back to you, but I find time to answer every person that sends me an email. Thank you for your hospitality. Thank you for the privilege and the honor to be here and speak before you today. It's been a great honor of mine. Thank you.
I'm not quite sure how to handle this. We can have 10 minutes of questions, and then we'll take a break, let people leave, and then we'll resume questions. Okay, so we're going to start with some questions? Well, it's right out, yeah, I think we probably will.
As I explained at the beginning of this, you are welcome to fill out a card with a question, and Tony will entertain that. We're running out of time. I think